What is going on, boys? Davii Spooks is back in the house. And look, boys, I'll be honest, it has been a minute, but I've returned in a major way, boys. And if you can't already tell, we've got a bit of a June theme going on here. I'm over here on Scorched Earth on an official isolated server. So today, I'm going to tell you the story about how I went from Fremen to the God Emperor of ARK Survival Ascended. And like any ARK story, we started with a note run. However, we are on Scorched Earth, so that proved a little bit tricky. Just in case anyone hasn't played this map before, or in case you've forgotten, Scorched Earth has the most insane PvE. The temperature, the wild dinos, it's cooked. So we made our slow progress south all the way to our starting base location. After only getting to level 44, it was time to refuel and start building the base. With the starter base down, it was time to farm up some hide for some forges, some silk for some whips and desert armor, and then some rotten meat for narcotics. And we even managed to land a metal hatchet. However, in this process, we died a lot.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
However, we were still able to farm up a forge, and then we went out and got some metal. We were able to put together a mortar pestle, then crafted up our first narcotics. And using our metal ingots, we could then craft up the smithy. And then we could finally craft some of the desert armor. This stuff is crucial on Scorched Earth. It's the ARK equivalent of a still suit. Keeps you from dying to the heat. Early game, this is your bread and butter. We also upgraded our tools, got a pickaxe, and also got a crossbow. Using this crossbow and the narcotics we crafted, we'll be able to craft up some trank darts, and then hopefully we can go get ourselves an RG. Easy, boys, let's knock this thing out. Right, there we go, knocked out, 130, decent stats.
Boy, ain't no fucking way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy.
Unsurprisingly, that bowler did very little to help the situation. Rip, the RG is dead, sad reacts only. Alas, we got our revenge. Alright, we'll go tell up another RG. Alright, second RG is down, it's only at level 20, but look, that'll do for now. And we'll put the spikes straight up. We don't want any mucking about like we had last time. So this RG level 20, very precious. We've got to make sure it survives. Alright, we're just going to feed it some raw meat. Boom! First RG of the episode. Let's go. Alright, to make a saddle, all we need to do is just farm up these terror birds, get some hide, and that's all we need. We've got plenty of cotton and fibre at base. Alright, now we got all the mats. We're going to craft this up. Alright, we're good to go. Let's go do our first RG metal run. Right, I got back to base with all the material, put the metal into craft, and I didn't record, but I've upgraded the base to adobe. So this should keep us nice and cool. And there wasn't enough room for a bed, so I had to put it out the front. We also needed a morella top so we could farm up some berries to craft up some more narcotics. Boom, there we go, knocked out. Unfortunately, when I was protecting my morella tops, my IG got killed. Overestimated it a little bit. I forgot that it was only level 50, but hey. We got the morella tops all tamed up. Now let's go farm some berries. There we go. A good amount of narco berries. Now we've just got to get it back to base without the RG.
No, 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 no.
Ripped the morella tops, lasted about 2 minutes. Anyway, we got the narco berries back to base, and with all the rotten meat, we can craft up bulk narcotics. Also went out and tamed another Argent, this one level 105, slightly better than the level 20 we got, so hopefully this one lasts us a bit longer. With a decent level RG with decent weight, it was time to get an Anki. Level 95, this one should be fine. We dropped the Anki off in our little trap that we made, and then we went and knocked it out. Not amazing damage, but it'll do. We also went out and found a decent level Dodicarus. This should help us farm bulk stone. And then we went and knocked that one out too. One of the big downsides of Scorched Earth is the lack of oceans and anglers, so pearls is real hard to get. So we went out on foot. The best spot is actually at Red Ob with a whip. you just go around whipping up all these pearls. So we cleared out the whole area, got a decent amount, and with this, we'll head back to base. I also found someone had built at the Red Orb Cave, and it was Mountain Gods. I also went and checked out Central Cave, and it was the same story. Mountain Gods had claimed it. They were clearly the alpha of the server. We dropped the pearls at base and went looking for a Megatherium. These guys are insane at getting cotton, and with the Doed, we'll have infinite paste. With the trap built, all we had to do was lure the Megatherium in. Boom. Knocked out. We'll quickly throw some meat in, and then we'll go out and farm some poly. In Ascended, I swear the mantis spawns in the desert have increased. These things are everywhere. So able to farm up a whole bunch of organic polymer. Then we headed over to Blue Orb. With a bit of crystal, oil, metal and poly, I was able to craft some cryopods. With the cryopods all crafted, it was time to go and collect all my tames. With my dinos all safe and secure, it was time to take the Doed out for a spin. Now with stone and chitin, it was time to craft up all the paste. I got a good amount here. Next, I wanted a cryo fridge to store all my dinos and keep them safe. And to make a cryo fridge, I actually need some electronics. So I crafted up a fabricator and whacked it on the roof because there's nowhere else to put it. Whacking in all the pearls I had farmed up, and we can craft the electronics that we need. I also went back to the desert to farm up some more organic polymer, and then we finally had enough to craft up a cryo fridge. Let's go. And some cryopods for good measure. I decided to put the first cryo fridge into Central Cave with our Megatherium, so we have constant access to poly farm and chitin farm. While the alphas had built a few structures in this cave, it was mostly free and there was still heaps of spawns, so we're going to go quickly farm that up now. Boom, just like that, we've got heaps of chitin, heaps of poly. We're going to have cementing paste for days. When we got back home, it was time to expand the base. The fabricator on the roof wasn't working. People could come and steal stuff. So we made our base a little bit bigger so we can fit everything inside. There we go, we could finally fit a cryo fridge in the base, which means we can throw out all the tames that had been sitting there for a little bit. So it's time to do some major farming. With all this bulk stone, we were able to craft up even more paste, which we were seriously lacking. Also crafted up a chainsaw so we can get some wood in the forges. The next order of business was to finally take out this Anki for a metal run. With this, we had to fill up the forges and get bulk metal smelting up. I also went and farmed up a bit of sulfur, just in case we want to make a flamethrower. We farmed up a good amount of metal, so I decided to log off and let it cook overnight. I woke up in the morning to some very interesting news in the chat. We learnt that Mountain Gods were the new alpha. They actually beat the old toxic alpha, had already conquered the server, and were actually looking to move. With the current alphas about to leave, this would leave a major power vacuum on the server. People were already jockeying to try and secure one of the base locations. It was clear that this server was about to be thrown into chaos, and I had to be prepared whatever was going to happen. So it was time to scale up our progression in a major way. With an ominous storm brewing, packed up everything we had into the RG to prepare to move to our new base location. Just like the Fremen Sietches, we needed somewhere safe, secure, and hidden. So using all the metal we farmed up, I prefabbed everything we needed and then set off. We travelled all the way back north on the RG, so it took hours, but we made it. So this is the new spot here. Pretty average, there's not heaps of good rat holes on Scorched Earth. However, it should be enough, hidden away enough, so that we can progress hidden and not get raided. So let's build it. There we go, boys. Finally finished the base. Managed to get a few turrets down, all the forges, smithies, and now we just got to whack the beds down. Easy done, boys. New base looking sweet. Unfortunately, the beds in this location didn't work, and this is one of the most annoying things about ARK Ascended. If the bed is too close to the mesh, you spawn in a random spot. So we had to move the bed. This spot seemed to work a bit of a treat. But with the base completed and our first turret down, I went over to Red Orb, farmed up a bunch of pearls that were used to make some more turrets and keep the base safe from any potential griefers. It was then time to load up all these forges with metal, so I took the Anki out for its first metal run at the new base. We also kept bulk crafting cementing paste. And then we took the Megatherium for a spin out in the desert and managed to get a whole bunch of polymer and chitin. So with the metal, cementing paste and poly, we are good to craft up a chem bench. Boom, let's go. With this chem bench down, we'll be able to craft so much cementing paste, we'll be able to build so many turrets in this base, we'll be able to get it properly defended. We'll also farm up a bunch of spark and gunpowder so we can fill up these turrets. Alright, with that gunpowder we'll be able to craft up bulk ARB and we'll be able to craft up about 5 turrets all up. While it's not a heap, it should keep our base a little bit more protected. Let's put them down. As you can see, these turrets came in clutch. While I was asleep overnight, they clapped someone who was sneaking by. So sorry to my boys Eric and Marco. Unlucky boys. Now our base was relatively secure, it was time to head across the map and find ourselves some oil. Thankfully there were already some oil barons on the server who had set up some pumps for us, so we just came in and then robbed them blind. Let's go. Oil for days, boys. As we were flying out, I noticed a little base up on the top of the pillar. And by the looks of it, it was raided. Turrets were down, so I thought I'd fly over and have a little bit of a sticky beak. It was proper raided, boys. They had heaps of rock golems outside still that were trying to take my head off, but thankfully I was secure inside the base. Turrets were empty, however they had a chest that was full of metal, boys. We had metal for days. Huge fun, so we had to try and load up as much of this as we could and take it back home. This was more metal than I even knew what to do with. It was time to do some serious expansion. But first we had to do some serious travel to hike all this metal from this base all the way back to my Sietch. Despite dying on the second trip, we managed to get all the metal back to base, and that's when I had an idea. We had enough metal and we had the levels to craft up an industrial forge. All we needed was some organic polymer and we needed a bit more space. So the first mission was to set out to the desert and farm up 400 poly. Then we could think about prefabbing a new base that could fit this big old forge in. Also, while we're out here, we got jumped by some of these big old sandworms, but thankfully the Megatherium gets this insane buff when it kills the bugs, and it can absolutely clap these deathworms. So after killing a few of these, we managed to level up and hit level 87. And with all the polymer that we needed, it was time to head back to base. Now we're back at base, all I need to do is add that one bit of metal and boom! The industrial forge is crafted, boys. This is huge progression. With this, we had to smelt metal so quick. Oh my goodness, we'll have so much. It was then time to start preparing to move to the new Sietch, somewhere bigger that we could put this industrial forge. So we did a bunch of farming to prefab for the base. We need a heap more turrets and we also need a bunch of metal structures. So we put down a second smithy just to craft this a bit faster. But with all the metal we got, we can craft as much as we want. And I'll show you boys in a second where we're about to set up our new spot. With everything loaded into the RG, it was time to migrate once again over to our brand new Sietch. Thankfully, this one is a lot closer. Here we go, boys. Here's the spot. I've already built the initial shell of the base, got a few turrets down, but there's still a lot of work to go. There we go. The general shell of the base is basically done. We'll have to put the turrets down, and then we'll start putting the structures down. Boom, industrial forge is down. It thankfully fits. How good does that look? Even though I said we had so much metal, we didn't know what to do with it. We actually used it all up making that base. So we had to go out and get some more. But thankfully with the base so close to all this metal in the mountains, that was an easy task. We farmed up a good amount of metal, nearly able to fill the forge. We had a couple of slots left, so we'll probably go back out with the chainsaw and try to get some wood for charcoal. And we also found up a bunch of obsidian, so we just turned that straight into hard polymer because we had so much paste. We were also heading back to Red Ob on cooldown and collecting all those pearls so we could keep crafting those turrets. And we also put down a second fabricator just so we can keep crafting electronics and ARB at the same time. Then we went straight and took the chainsaw for a spin and chopped down every single tree we could see. We chopped down so many trees that Greta Thunberg was on our case, but thankfully we got just enough to fill up the forges, boys. So we were on an absolute rampage. And with that all crafting up, we had enough to make a chem bench, we had enough for some vaults, and we had enough for some more turrets. So we went and put all that down. Boom, there we go. The front wall is all done. All we gotta do is fill these up, turn them on, and then we should hopefully be protected until we can get some heavy turrets on there, and then we'll be good to go. Using all the charcoal we smelted, we managed to make a whole bunch of gunpowder, and we just quickly whack these in the fabricator now, and we'll be able to craft up some serious ARB. While all that was crafting up, I went back to Red Ob and farmed up a whole bunch more pearls to keep those turrets coming. And on my way back to base, encumbered with pearls, I ran across the mountain god's main base. And it wasn't anything crazy, but with them potentially leaving the server, this could potentially be a hotspot for raid activity. So I had to keep scanning this just to make sure. I also wanted to build an industrial cooker for some med brews, and you got to be level 89. So I set back out on the Megatherium to take out some more death worms and get some more of those levels. So after killing a few of those, I was able to hit level 92, which also meant I was able to craft a Zeppelin. And if you don't know what these are one of those pay-to-win features that they added into ARK Ascended, and they seem pretty OP, so I wanted to take one for a spin and see what it was really about. Boom, there it is. Whoa, oh, it's falling. I finally managed to get the thing running, and it was pretty cool. It was like a raft, except it flies. So this could potentially be very good for raiding and farming as well. So we'll keep this parked up for now, but definitely we'll be using this in the future. However, we finally had the resources to craft up an industrial cooker, so we went ahead and built that and then whacked it back down. We then went out and farmed a bunch of tinto berries with the Megatherium, whacked them into the cooker to make some med brews. However, I had on auto crafting and I made a bunch of random dyes, wasted all my tinto berries, so we had to go do that again. This time I actually managed to figure it out, and boom, we had some med brews. As I sat back and looked at the handiwork that I'd been building for the past few days, I saw that it was good. However, there was still one more thing we needed to ensure our safety in the face of the political instability on the Scorched Earth server. It was time to go and hit the Wyvern Trench. So the first thing we needed to go get some of these eggs was to get a fly that could get us out safe and sound. Unfortunately, the RGs are too slow, so I went out and knocked out a few tapageras. Once we got one of these, we had to fly in, get the egg, fly out, and then be able to raise it back in our base.
So let's go tame a few of them up now.
Beauty. There we go, first one. Boom. Boom, there it is. There we go, with 3 tapageras, it was time to take these bad boys for a spin and see if we can snatch an egg from the trench.
Boom, and then we're off full speed. I've got to get in and I've got to get out quick.
Lightning, that's good. 70, that's pretty good. Let's get the egg out of here. Go, go, go. Go, 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 go. Boom, there we go, boys. First wyvern egg, easy as that. We'll take this one back to base, get it incubating, and then we'll go back and get another one. Hopefully, we get one that's actually a high level. Another lightning. Oh, 135, that's huge. Right, let's get the heck out of here. Oh, this guy's on us. Oh, jeez. Oh, we're on fire. Oh boy, it's not looking good. Oh, we're toast. Oh, rip. Unfortunately, our first tappy died getting the high level egg, but we managed to recover the egg, bring it back to base and get it incubating. So the next thing we needed to do was set up a wyvern trap so we could go and get some milk to fully raise these things. So this is another trap from Captain Fat Dog, shout out again, and we'll quickly put this thing together.
A few moments later.
Oh jeez. As I was putting the trap together, a full storm came out of nowhere and slowed down my progress. However, it was beautiful, so I thought I'd take a good look at it before I got back to work. There we go, we're essentially done here, so let's go out and test this trap, and hopefully it works. There we go, there we go. This one should be going straight in. There's one trapped. Oh, the madness! So the trap didn't work. I think I built it slightly wrong and I had too many wyverns to deal with. So rip the RG, let's try this again. But when I was trying to get my kit back, this happened. Oh, what the heck? No! No, he took it down. He took down the whole thing. So even though that was annoying, it actually worked in our favor because we had to rebuild most of it anyway. So we fix it up again and let's see if this actually works. Let's test it out. We finally got one stuck and we were able to knock it out quick smart. But when I went over and checked the milk, there was none there. And that's when I realized I had just knocked out a male. Only the females dropped the milk. As you can see, I'm a massive noob when it comes to raising up wyverns. However, there was no more females in the trench, so I rode around on the tappy and picked up a bunch of eggs. Hopefully, we get a good level here. However, I got a bit too ambitious and then this happened. Yeah, this is not good. This guy's dead. Jeez, this is gonna be tough. Then I tried to get some more milk with my next tappy. And then with my last RG. Oh, pull up, pull up. No! So after the day at the trench, my total count was 3 dead tappies and 2 dead RGs. And no milk to show for it. However, our 135 lightning wyvern had finally popped, so it was time we actually did need some milk. So I went out and set off again. We actually had to tame a whole new RG because all of mine were dead, so we went out and got one and then managed to get a wyvern stuck into the trap. Nice. It's in, boys.
And this time, it was a female.
Let's go. With the milk finally secure, we went and brought it back to the wyvern and gave him some milk to drink. I also found out about this insane pay to win feature. It's called barrel storage, and you can put wyvern milk in these barrels, seal them up, and they last forever. Well, not necessarily forever, but they last for quite a while. And with one set of wyvern milk, you can essentially raise up a whole wyvern.
A few moments later.
I logged out for the night and boom, I've come back online and the lightning wyvern is ready to go. It's fully raised and I think it's time to take this bad boy for a spin. And just like that, boys, with a wyvern fully raised and ready to go, I turned from being the hunted to the hunter, from being prey to the predator. With a wyvern, suddenly Scorched Earth starts to feel very, very easy. We first went down to the trench, collected a few eggs, then with our superior flying speed, we easily lured female wyverns into the trap for some more milk. Easy wyvern milk, boys. A lightning wyvern was so powerful, we could even just kill other wyverns just like they were dodos. We could easily farm them up. And just like that, we had claimed the wyvern trench. We even took the wyvern out to the deep desert to face the deathworms, even taking on 2 at a time. And just like everything else our wyvern faced, these deathworms fell. With the desert cleared of deathworms, I decided to go out and get myself a bee so we could farm up some honey. On Scorched Earth, the only location that really spawns these is the central cave. And they kind of fly around, you just go up with a rare flower and you can tame them, easy as that. While I had been to central cave earlier in this series, I noticed something a little bit different this time. There was a pyro man blocking the entrance with a sign, so I decided to go a little bit closer. And as I drew closer, my worst fears were realized. The cave was blocked off, and the new alphas were extorting the server, 100 black pearls, for access to the artifact of the Gatekeeper. Without this artifact, no one on the server can do the boss fight without paying the exorbitant 100 pearl price. And on Scorched Earth, black pearls are the hardest resource to get. You have to kill hundreds of death worms to be able to get this amount. It was now clear to me that this once liberated server had fallen back into tyranny. And this tyranny had been brought forth by the very tribe that had saved the server, mountain gods. And I would not stand idle and watch the server fall back into decay. Something had to be done. When I returned back to base, I knew that luck was on my side. With triplets from my latest 140 egg, I had quadrupled my lightning wyvern fleet. However, I knew this would not be enough to gain air supremacy over the alphas, who had months to breed top stat wyverns, and they probably had hundreds of them. So instead, I established the 3-step plan. Step 1 was the arms race. I had to tame up as many soakers as I could. And the best soaker on Scorched Earth is the Rock Golem. As the Manticore boss doesn't provide any tech turret engrams, no one on this isolated server had access to tech turrets. These Rock Golems could soak all the heavy turrets that sit inside the central cave. And all we need to knock them out is this Zeppelin and a cannon and a trap, which the mountain gods built themselves. Oh, jeez. Using a chest full of cannonballs, we shot them all right at the Rock Golem's head. There it is, boom. With the first one knocked out, we went and found ourselves a second one. Oh. We got hit, but he's down. Holy moly boys, we spent a 140. Holy. After filling up all the mountain gods' traps, I turned our Zeppelin into a rock golem taming machine. So hopefully with this build, we can go knock out this 140. Boom, there we go, Rock Golem is down, the mobile taming unit worked a treat. Next we tan up some Daedons so we can heal up our Rock Golems mid-raid. After crying up both our Daedons when they were finished taming, we took them straight back to base. The second step of the plan was to hit level 100. This would give me access to heavy turrets so I could be able to defend my own base better when the Alpha tribe begins to retaliate, and I can also put down a more intimidating fob. Boom, there we go boys. Let's get the heck out of here. Level 1 freaking 100. With the heavy turret unlocked, I went back and cried up all these rock golems that took hours to tame. I then took all my cryoed rock golems back to base and then crafted my first heavy turret. With this placed on the base, I felt a lot more secure boys. With the prospect of war looming, it was time to shed my desert kit and don my Arakeen battle armor. With this, I'll be protected in the heat and also in the fierceness of battle. Plus, I look very intimidating. The third part of the plan was to get some allies, because when this conflict eventually escalates, I'm going to need as much sympathy as I can gather. While this tribe was technologically inferior with their simple turrets, they were very popular in the global chat. I knew this was the most crucial tribe to try and get on side. After I showed my respect with a tip of the hat, the tribe leader of Hakuna Matata eventually agreed to have a discussion. Our preliminary diplomatic discussions went as well as could be expected. The leader of the tribe was a man of few words, but I offered them my support should any battle fall their way. My hope was that this offering of goodwill would get them on side, but only time will tell. With his rock golems beginning to hurl rocks at me, I knew I might have overstayed my welcome, so I bid my farewell and headed back to base, hoping I had done enough. On my way home, I cried up 2 more rock golems. I now had a full army ready to go. It was time to bring our plan to fruition. The day had finally come. It was time to liberate the central cave from mountain gods and return it back to the people. In my desire to wipe the mountain gods, I might have been in a bit too much of a hurry, and I decided to get my rocket launcher out, start clearing this wall, and then this happened. Not off to a great start. However, we managed to get our kit back, and with my rocket launcher I managed to put a hole in the wall and we got our first look inside, and just as I expected, a lot of heavy turrets. Now we had all the information about the layout of Mountain God's base, it was time to set up the fob. Unfortunately, I didn't actually know you could pick pyromanes with a wyvern. You could also pick them with an RG, so I just lured it away into the closest river and then returned back to the raid. With the first rock golem and the daedon thrown out, it was time to start clearing some of this wall so I could begin soaking. I then hopped on my rock golem and walked up to start soaking. However, there was an issue. The turrets weren't shooting. I should have realised this before when I got shot off the wyvern and my wyvern didn't get shot, but these turrets were on plays only, so I decided to try and get a different angle. Unfortunately, from this position, my rocket still didn't do any damage to the turrets. They had positioned them well. So my next method was to try and soak them through the leg of my own rock golem, using a riot shield to try and bait the turret to shoot, and then quickly hiding behind the rock golem so I didn't get hit. However, this method proved slow and ineffective, so we had to think of something else. After clearing some more of their spikes, we managed to get an angle using the rock golem where we could soak a couple of their turrets. Using this method, we were able to soak 2 of their hairy turrets up the front. However, that was all we could do. Given that it was late and I needed to tame more dinos to finish off this raid, I decided to abandon it for the night. We had to hope that the mountain gods didn't come online before us, or if they did, that they wouldn't care about all the red that I just put into their tribe logs. Boy, was I wrong. When I had come back online, it was clear that mountain gods had too. They had resealed the wall, which meant that they saw the red in the tribe log and they weren't happy about it. However, they still hadn't fully put all the spikes back into place, so I knew my time to strike was now before they could fully rebuild it or fortify it even more. So I set off to go and tame some terrorbirds. Using these, I'd be able to sneak them through the small crack in the central cave, tie a C4 to them, and blow up any turrets. If they're on player only mode, they wouldn't target my terrorbirds. As I was flying to one of my traps, I noticed they had fobbed outside one of my decoy bases. Any hope of the mountain gods not realizing my failed assault were gone. Things had escalated. So quickly when I knocked out these terrorbirds, I had to raid quickly. However, little to my knowledge, I had just stumbled into a mountain god's ambush. Oh, we're under attack. Oh no, they found us. Retreat. They were bold enough to conduct a midday skirmish, and I was the target. I had to go. However, I could easily outrun this guy with my imprinted wyvern, and so I escaped the clutches of the mountain gods. But now a new phase of this conflict had blossomed. We were in open conflict. And this was not something I could win against the Alpha tribe. I needed the support of the people. So I channeled all the oration skills of Paul Atreides and took to the global chat. And with just 2 words, everything kicked off. And this turned out to be the perfect time. The server was full, and our boys Hakuna Matata were also in the chat. The stage was set. All I had to do was win them to my cause. My first strategy was to play the victim card and gain some sympathy from the server. And my plea to the people had been heard. However, mountain gods responded back. They called out my strategy and then they brought up the cave. He had fallen right into my trap. It was time to go for the jugular. I aired all my allegations into the global chat for all to see. The reactions were mixed, but people were in shock as I continued my proclamation. However, there was one voice who was raised in support of mountain gods. Tribe of Chill Guy. He made the argument that blocking off the cave was a form of trade. However, I made the point that this more resembled extortion. However, that one voice of dissent started to become many, and I was quickly on the back foot. Even my inspired quotes were being turned against me. I was starting to lose hope. I had used all the persuasion skills I could gather, and it was getting me nowhere. The people had all turned against me, and the final straw was my boys Hakuna Matata calling to take off my head, and that just made me angry. I was so angry that I was about to use all the military might that I'd mustered to wipe every single one of the tribes that had supported mountain gods. With their simple turrets, I could wipe all of them overnight. But then I remembered some very wise words.
Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing.
This made me remember what Chill Guy had put into the chat just earlier. I couldn't blame these people for not helping me. They were just scared. Suddenly, everything became clear. Mountain gods had once liberated the server, and everyone had grown to trust them. The server had become a peaceful place. However, that all changed when the bulk of the Mountain Gods players left to play on a different server, and they left behind Joe. And this was when everything went downhill. See, this Joe was clearly lazy. He didn't want to start up from scratch like the other tribe members. He wanted to maintain his alpha status. And he was so lazy he didn't even want to farm. That's why he sealed off the central cave so he could get free black pearls. And then he couldn't even raise his own wyvern, so he was chasing me on one of his tribe mates' wyvern. This guy was Lazy Joe, and in his laziness, he had become a tyrant, just like the Baron, and I had to take him down and free the server from his yoke. After setting up a secret base where I could store all my important loot, I set out to finish what I had started. After clearing all the spam that Lazy Joe had put down, which wasn't a lot, I reconstructed our fob. And this time, we included some heavy equipment. If Lazy Joe decided to pull up, he'd get lasered. I then threw out my rock golem. And then it was time to begin the raid. Before I could go any further, I had to deal with this pesky pyromane, which Lazy Joe kept bringing back. So it was time to finish this guy off for good. I flew him right into the base of Chill Guy and let his own turrets deal with it. See ya. Then I returned back to the cave to get this raid started. Thankfully for us, Lazy Joe was too lazy to add more turrets to the base, or even change the settings, so we were able to soak a few turrets just like we did before. Once we had soaked those few turrets, it was time to try our new strategy, the Kamikaze Terror Birds. I strapped these boys up with C4 and sent them straight into the base. And thankfully for us, this confirmed that every single one of those turrets were on player only, so this strategy would work a treat. And just like that, in a couple of minutes, we'd already destroyed our first heavy turret, and we hadn't even lost a single terror bird. After another successful run, we managed to clear nearly the whole front wall. This terror bird strategy was working an absolute treat. We were nearly in. However, the turrets in the back of the cave proved a little bit tricky, but on the back of the rock golem I could get a clear angle into the cave. Using my spyglass, I could whistle the terror bird directly into the turret. Just had to get in range of the C4 to actually work, and boom, there we go, another turret is down. When we were a bit closer, I got a better look into the cave and discovered some more sneaky turrets. By my count, there was only 3 more turrets remaining, but on the back of the rock golem, we should be able to target all of these. One down, 2 more to go. This one was in a very awkward position, but we got the angle exactly right. And boom, 2 down, 1 more to go. This last turret was by far the hardest. It was the furthest away, and it was the highest up. However, we got super lucky and got the terror bird right literally below it. All we had to do was just get close enough with the C4 det to blow it up. This initially proved very tricky. We eventually got the distance right and I ran straight into the cave and I hadn't been shot. Boys, we had officially done it. We are in the cave. Easy as that. All we had to hope for was that there was no further defences deeper into the cave. If Sleepy Joe really had decided to make this cave his base, he might have more turrets at the choke point. However, I didn't think this was likely. So I cleared out the rest of the structures that Mountain Gods had placed in the front of the cave, and then we pushed deeper. Whoa. Cheers for the gas, boys. And there we go. He hadn't built a single other structure deep into the cave. It was clear that either Lazy Joe was lying, or he was just lazy and hadn't got around to moving his base yet. So we ran straight in and grabbed that artifact. The artifact that has been at the center of all this conflict. we had finally had it in our possession. With this cave open, everyone on the server, not just the alpha, could do the Scorched Earth boss fight. Don't tell my wife, but this might have been the happiest day in my life. After such a great victory to House Atreides, and with the server finally liberated, it was time to log off for the night. When I awoke in the morning, there was no beds where my base used to be. Lazy Joe and the mountain gods didn't let me have the last laugh. There was no way Lazy Joe raided my base on his own. He clearly called in the banners from his old tribe mates. He would have been too lazy to do it by himself. But we did prepare for this situation. That is why we assembled the secret base. So Lazy Joe was not able to get any easy loot. He'll have to work for it. But I still had beds from my raid the night before, and mountain gods had been too busy raiding my base. They hadn't repaired the central cave. It was still wide open, ready for the server to take as many artifacts as they could gather. So, as part of my last refrain, I let the people know. And look who it is who responded in the chat. Our boys, Hakuna Matata. While they and everyone else on the server allowed House Atreides to fall, the Kwisatz has risen. And then within the central cave, I built a memorial to House Atreides, including all the quotes I had said in this great conflict, to serve as a reminder to Lazy Joe and the toxic mountain gods of what one man can do. And as I exited the House Atreides tomb, I noticed a tapejara sitting at the front. And it was none other than our boy, Hakuna Matata. And there he was, hiding in his ghillie suit, full of shame. But he was thankful. He was thankful to House Atreides and the liberation we brought to the server. And with Hakuna Matata's newfound freedom, he ran straight into the cave. And my eyes filled with tears. I was delighted. And then I tipped the man my hat. In a show of gratitude and goodwill, Hakuna Matata on his tapejara picked me up and took me back to the surface, away from my own tomb. And then he was gone. He took off and flew into the distance. And as I watched him, I knew there was still one more thing left, which I had to do. It was time to pass the mantle. I had my base filled with all the cryos and all my loot, but I was now the Kwisatz, and that journey was for someone else. It was now time to ascend, past my human form. Before the sandworm, there was the sand trout, and before the sand trout, there was the sand. The precious cycle must continue. It was now time to become the God Emperor.